Hello, hello. Happy live. I hope you guys all had a fantastic Mother's Day and are enjoying the stupendous weather outside. I have been watching a puppy. I call all dogs puppies, even if they're not young. So I've been on a lot more walks lately and rollerblades. So I hope you guys have also been enjoying outside and had, like I mentioned, a fantastic Mother's Day. And you might see the puppy in the video if she wanders into the shot. But I'm going to do my normal, which is go over real estate updates for you guys locally as well as across Canada and answer any questions that you guys have. Feel free to message them in the chat. Or if you guys don't feel comfortable doing that, I will just answer some that have come throughout the week and also go over happy news, okay? It's also my sister's birthday today. Happy 24th to her. And my nephew tomorrow is his birthday as well. Okay, so the first question we have came from Jen and Billy and Barry. So Jen and Billy said, we bought a house on Burns Circle in 2016. I feel like it's a never-ending pit. We're always renovating or fixing something. When do you think or how do you know that enough is enough and it's time to move on to a new home? Thank you, Jen and Billy, for asking. Hello, Justin. How are you? To be honest, so whether it's that area or somewhere else, sometimes sometimes the size, right? So I've had people say like, we did a quartz counter, we did engineered hardwood, we did this, we did that, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, but it's still an interior unit of a townhome and in blah, blah area, right? Like sometimes people don't care about all the extras. They would rather have the detached. They would rather have the double car garage than the single car garage. They would rather have that extra square footage or what have you. So yeah, I wouldn't worry about if, for example, I don't know if you're a detached on Burns Circle or if you're a townhome, but I wouldn't worry about doing everything so much. Just the main things people look at are the windows, not the window, that's actually what they ask. The age of the windows, the age of the roof, and the age of the furnace. And then the main things they look at are the kitchens, the bathrooms, and the floors. So it doesn't mean you have to have $27,000 counters or what have you, but just don't have like pink or purple or green. You could have laminate ones that look like quartz or look like marble, but they don't have to be expensive if your neighborhood doesn't yield that or the size of your home or the style. Hello, Melissa. How are you? We have the lovely Baloo that might make an appearance later. So yeah, I wouldn't overdo things. I wouldn't be putting engineered hardwood and I wouldn't be worrying about, oh, I'm going to put a $1,300 faucet in here and what have you, just because I'm guessing by you saying that maybe you're not in the biggest model and, it's always, not to be rude, but going to be Burns Circle, right? It's not going to be a Coming Drive or a Wildwood or whatever, so I would not overdo it. But if you message me privately, I can say like more details because obviously I don't know the exacts of your house. Justin just did pot lights. He wrote pot lights. He did pot lights around his house. Are beautiful. I'm going to do some happy news before I get to real estate. So there's a bridge just outside of Baltimore. And there was a 5-car pileup the other day, and a toddler's car seat was thrown basically over the bridge because their front windshield broke. And so one of the men in the 5 vehicles, checked that his daughter was okay and then got out of his car and there was a bunch of people screaming. And basically the toddler's car seat was face first in the water. And he took off his shoes, and even though he was afraid of heights, he jumped 40 feet down into the cold river and got the little girl who was 2, and she was like airlifted to a local hospital, and now she is going to be fine. So obviously it was just a happy ending. Not happy that there's a 5-car pileup, but that everybody was okay. Oh, thanks, David. I will. That's very sweet of you. Okay, so next question comes from, I've actually seen, so I don't obviously walk as much as having a dog, but I've actually seen lots of people down at the water, so it's nice that everybody's getting out. And again, I hope you guys all had an amazing Mother's Day. So the next question comes from Meninder and Barry. So Meninder said, my parents don't live in Canada but want to buy a home so I don't pay rent, and then my friends can rent rooms off of me. Do they have to pay an extra tax since they don't live in the country? Thank you, Meninder, for asking. The lovely Kathleen Wynn in 2017 did put the foreign buyers tax on the 15%, but there are some loopholes to it. So last I checked, which hasn't been in a while, it was right when she first did it, there was something like, oh, if you're going to school for 4 years or what have you, so you might get out of it because I'm assuming that you're a student, so maybe they can get out of it. I don't know if it has to be them going to school or if it can be one of their, children, etc. So there are loopholes to it, so I would just check that out. But last I knew, if somebody was attending school for 4 years, that they were exempt from that 15%. So hopefully that works out for you. The next thing I was going to talk about before I get into real estate, so it might not be Valentine's Day, but there was love in the air with the oldest reported married couple. Julio is 110 and Waldrama is 104, and they've been married for 79 years and they're from Ecuador. They were together for 7 years before they got married, and they have 5 kids, 11 grandkids, 21 great-grandchildren, and 9 great-great-great-grandchildren. And they said their advice is, besides love, is maturity and mutual respect. So I thought that was super cute. And then one more thing before real estate updates. And I don't know, Melissa, if you're still on, but come here, Baloo. Come. Well, you guys can't see because she has her head on my lap, but Baloo is here. Matt from Bradford. So Matt from Bradford said, there's a family that I really think is deserving of your $2,500 giveaway that you do. Do you suggest us having multiple people nominate them to improve their chances, or is that not a thing? Thank you. She's on my lap, Melissa, but you can't see her. If she puts her head up, you'll see her. Thank you, Matt, for asking. To be honest, it won't improve your chances. Because we see everything, so we read it all as a team, and we'll see, okay, the same person, Samantha or Christine or whoever, was nominated. So if we see them multiple times, it's not going to make them have a higher chance of winning. We'll read their story, but obviously we'll recognize that the story is the same as before. So unfortunately, we'll not make their chances better, but maybe it'll catch our attention. But to be honest, we read them all anyway, so it doesn't really. But thank you. I hope you do nominate somebody and send your written or video submission to info@crippshomes.com, and we'll surprise somebody on the 1st of the month. And I lied. I have one more thing before real estate. So there was a yoga teacher in India, and she was swimming. Mommy wants to see her face. No? She's just going to relax on my lap. A yoga teacher swimming in India, and basically the tides got the best of her, and she wasn't doing very well. And the lifeguards, for some reason, weren't around. And anyways, this man from the Netherlands saved her, and she said, can I at least take you for dinner, for saving me? And fast forward, they ended up both canceling their flights home, and they traveled to Dubai and Siberia and Thailand, and then they just recently got married in the Netherlands. So I thought that was cute. That's cute, Melissa. Yes, she's having lots of fun. So we're going to, can you see her head? Wait. There's Baloo. There she is. We're going to go for a rollerblade after the live. So, okay. So now we are going on to real estate. And, okay. So if anybody has an extra $4 million kicking around, there's a house that just listed outside of Flamborough, and you get your own helicopter pad and your own, it's like 3,000 feet long or something if you want to land an airplane. It's like 7,000 square feet and 7 bedrooms and 5 bathrooms and 2 kitchens and a 3-story barn, etc. Or if you have even deeper pockets, you could buy, what's his wife's name? Melinda. Melinda Gates and Bill Gates' home just went for sale for $130 million. So loving life, yes. You could buy that. But so I don't know if you guys have heard of Desjardins. So they're like a cooperative. So it's not like a regular bank, but they do funding for mortgages. And basically they do this affordability index. So it compares how much people make versus their mortgage payments, versus how much homes cost. So basically, it's the worst it's been since 2008. Does not mean that the prices are down. It just means it's super unaffordable. So what people are being paid from their bosses versus how much it costs to buy a home just doesn't seem to equate. So we know obviously that there's extreme lack of affordability because the prices are so crazy. And basically it's saying that the market can't keep up with it, which I say every week, says it can't like go from 500,000 last year to 750 this year. It can't be a million next year and then 1.25. Like homes just can't go up that fast. Doesn't make sense. So they're still expecting them to rise, just it can't go up at that rate. And the second most unaffordable place to live right now is Toronto. First most unaffordable place to live is Vancouver. And third, which surprised me actually, was Hamilton. So for what the people make versus the price of the homes, so it's the third most unaffordable place to live in Canada, which again, I wasn't expecting. And then next, also surprising to me, was Niagara and St. Catharines. So as we know, like a lot of people are working from home and remotely, and some, countries are kind of jumping on this bandwagon. So Greece, for example, has a new slogan, and it says, if you can work from anywhere, why not work from Greece? So they are offering people half the income tax if they move there for 7 years. So if you want to move to Greece and you can work from home, that is an option for you. There's Bolo. Just checking it out. So some companies are obviously talking about like full work from home in the future, and others are saying like the hybrid, so half and half from home, half from in the office. So some people are like, oh, I'll be in Santorini for 2 weeks and I'll come home for 3 days in Mississauga and then I'll go back. I don't know if that'll be a thing, but some people are talking about that. And it's obviously unknown if people are going to stay out of the cities, if they get their shot and so forth. Are they going to go back to the cities? Basically, I'll tell you a little bit later about Toronto, but their prices are down. So we don't know, is that going to continue? And people are like, hey, we like living up at the cottage life. Or they're going to say, okay, now that clubs are open, we want to be back in the city, etc. So they did a survey through Statistics Canada, and 40% said they would like to do the hybrid formula, and only 15% said they want to completely work from home, and the rest said they want to get back to work in the office, which kind of surprised me. Another thing that's going to keep the market going is immigration. So 2020 had the least amount of people immigrate since 1998, which was 180,000, and that was just because of COVID restrictions. But they're still expecting in the next 3 years, 400,000 a year they want to bring in, right? So 1.2 million people new to the city, and obviously the main places they go are Toronto, Vancouver, and a little bit Montreal if they decide to go maybe possibly speak French, etc. So they're still expecting to do that, but they're thinking that if a lot of bosses do the hybrid model, more people will be likely to live, 90 minutes from the city, 2 hours from the city, etc. Because if they only have to go into the office 2 days a week as opposed to 5 days a week, it is a lot easier. We have a squeaky toy that was dropped off to me. So in Toronto, what I was going to say about Toronto is, so Toronto actually, for the first time since the pandemic, went down. So in April, the average home price dropped 3.6%. It's 1.05 million now, the average sales price. And do you like that, Melissa? 1.05. And then it is, like I mentioned the first time, but don't worry, it's not like it's a ghost town in Toronto or whatever. There was still over 10,800 homes that sold in April in Toronto. It just happened to be 3.6% less than April than March, okay? But it obviously is hard for it to keep being like more and more every month, which it has been the entire time until then in Toronto, because obviously a lot of Toronto people are still leaving, right? So they're still, suburban life and rural life and what have you. They're still moving to the outskirts. So it's hard to keep everything going crazy in Toronto when everybody is buying in like cottage country and they want a bigger lot and they want, a room to have, a gym and a home office, etc. So, it makes sense. Sucks for me because I have a home to list in Toronto, but it is what it is. Vancouver also had a drop. They had a bigger drop. They went down 14% from April compared to March. And a chief economist said, although price growth will be more moderate, it will still be an upward trend. Okay, so it's not going to again skyrocket like it just recently did from 2020 fall to 2021 spring, but it's still supposed to be an upward trajectory. Okay, and the reason he said this would be because of the lack of inventory and still the massive immigration. Another thing, what's going on with the current market is a lot of people that say they were planning on cashing out of Toronto and they were going to move to Niagara or, I don't know, Hamilton or Brantford or whatever. You know, they're like, oh, we'll sell our house for this price and buy over there. But now the rural, again, has skyrocketed a lot more. So Toronto, Vancouver, etc. Seems to be 10 to 18% higher, where the rural ones are going up like 28 to 55% more. So they're like, oh, wow, we thought we were going to sell, you know, for 1.2 and buy for 300, and now we're selling for 1.2 and buying for 750. So they're changing their retirement plans. Sometimes they are taking on part-time jobs, or they're buying smaller homes than they thought, or they're moving further, or they're even moving out east, or they are renting. So they're just changing their plans a little bit. What else was I going to say? Lots of people love selling in this market, obviously, but majority of people also have to be a buyer. So it's a bit of catch-22 because they love the selling. They're like, yay, but unless they're moving in with their parents or they have two properties already and they're moving to the other one, then they tend to be a bit on the frustrated side when they're a buyer as well. In Canada, so there was just a new survey done, and it said that it takes the average Canadian 63 months, which is 5.25 years to save for a down payment, which is crazy. Over 5 years to save for a down payment. Obviously, that depends what market you live in or want to buy in. So if you want to buy in the Toronto market, you actually have to save for over 23 years. I'm sorry, I feel like I'm just ahead and I don't have clothes on. So there, I have a sweater on. So if you want to buy in Toronto, you have to save on average for over 23 years. If you want to buy in Vancouver, the average sales price, and compared to what you make, so you actually have to, on average, make $237,000 and change a year just to buy the average sales price in Vancouver, which is crazy. And you have to save way longer to buy in Vancouver, 32.4 years on average to save up money for your down payment in Vancouver. And mortgage payments in Victoria, so obviously in BC, the average mortgage payment takes 60% of people's wage, and higher than that is Vancouver. So their average wage, 78% goes to putting a roof over their head. And oddly, again, Hamilton's coming in here. So Hamilton came in third, where at 38.9% of their income goes to their home. And then following after that for like fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, etc., was Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, Quebec, Calgary, and Edmonton in those orders. So if you guys are wondering what's happening in Simcoe County, so less homes sold in April than March, but it's not like Toronto where the prices were down. It was just less homes sold, but the prices were still up. So in March, 499 homes sold in Barrie, for example. Because sometimes I say all of Simcoe, sometimes I say Barrie. So in Barrie, 499 homes sold in March, and in April, 368 sold. So there was less. But in March, the average sales price was $714 and change, and in April, the average sales price was $725 and change. So unlike Toronto, it did not go down. And year to date in Simcoe County, there has been 1,969 homes sold. That was last year. And this year, there was 3,802. So 3,800 homes sold last year, just over 1,900 homes sold. And last year, the average sales price was $526. And this year, the average sales price was $758, which is crazy. So $526 to $758 in 1 year. So that's what I was saying before, is they're just saying it can't continue to go up at that rate, which obviously makes sense because that is ludicrous. So last year, the average detached home in Barrie cost $569,000 and change. This year, it costs just over $821 for a detached home. Again, crazy, jumping $569 to $821. Last year, the average semi-detached home, so 2 homes, so it's not a townhome, there's not 3, 4, 5, 6, there's just 2. The average one went for just over $430, and this year, the average one went for over $618. And last year, the average townhome went for just over $414, And this year, the average one went for over $596. And last year, the average condominium was selling for just over $389,000. And this year, the average condominium selling for over $512,000. There's currently 627 homes on the market, and 558 are freehold, and the rest are condominiums. I'm seeing like certain people. Hi, Vanessa. I hope you had a wonderful Mother's Day. The next question comes from Craig and Aurelia. Craig said, would you suggest someone listing a bunch of their properties now if someone had investment properties in hopes to buy them cheaper later this year or next? I'm assuming that you don't mean the exact same homes, that you just mean similar type homes. And to be honest, honestly, we don't know what's going to happen to the market. Obviously, majority, if you listen to these weekly, economists say that the market is expected to continue to go up. The odd one says a blip, but obviously we've never had a pandemic before. We don't know if people are going to get, their first and second shots, etc. And then they're like, okay, I'm going to move back to Toronto. And then suddenly homes that were selling for 800 are now only going to sell for 6. We can't obviously say that, but majority of economists are saying that is not going to happen, just because the amount of immigration and still the lack of inventory and still the low interest rates. I personally maybe wouldn't do everything. Like, it's not like, oh, sell it all now and wait, because what if there is a dip and you could have got more before and now you can get 9 and you can only get 775 then, but maybe diversify it a little bit, right? Just in case. I sold some properties last year that I could have got way more for this year, but then I also reinvested and bought other properties last year that are worth way more this year. So if you are doing both sides of it, it's different than if you're just doing one side. No worries, Vanessa. I hope you were spoiled, though, and not just on Mother's Day, year round. And yes, Melissa, the cost of building is insanity. And I like that you have a little graph there. So yeah, a lot of people, we had somebody, for example, Melissa and I, that bought a lot, and I think they got possession in February, and then they listed it because the cost to build was just crazy. So they're like, we're just going to take advantage of the market and sell it for higher and just buy a house that's already listed. So market is quite all over the place. So it kind of depends what your plans are for the future. But thank you for asking, Craig. So the next thing is from... Dun, 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 dun. Oh, it's just news. So about 74% of people say that they're actually better people since the pandemic. So they did a survey of just over 3,000 people, and 74% of people say they are more selfless now than they were before. Not selfish, selfless. So they give more to people than they did before the pandemic. 87% of people said they have made some kind of a donation off of their paycheck since COVID. 41% said they have helped a stranger in some way. 38% have taken out their neighbor's trash or brought it back in. 31% have walked their neighbor's dog. And 33% of people have shoveled somebody's snow, which in this beautiful weather, I don't want to think of snow. And 72% of people say they now care more about people's well-being and health, as well as how they're taking care of themselves and eating properly, etc., since the pandemic. So it's nice that we're all looking after each other better now. So the next question comes from Mackenzie and Stainer. So Mackenzie says, I own a house with my 2 older brothers, and we're all on title and mortgage, but we have different ideas of what should be done. None of us can afford to buy the others out. Do you have any suggestions for us? Thank you for asking, Mackenzie. It's super hard, to be honest, when you're that, like, in that position. If, for example, somebody could afford to buy somebody out, then, it would make more sense to be in 3 different properties. But in the meantime, I wouldn't say, okay, just get out of it and go, all 3 of you go rent, just because of, the market continuing to go up. Again, not at the craziness. It can't go up the craziness that it did from fall of 2020 to spring of 2021. Can't do that. I think I had some extra 20s in there, but you know what I'm saying. So it can't do that, but I would hate for you guys, let's just say you sold at 700 and in 2 years it was worth, 880 or what have you. And then it's that much harder for you guys to get back in the market. So if you guys can just say, hey, I would like to do this, 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 and somebody says, I'd like to do this, this, and you figure it out okay, we're not going to do your 2 things of your 3. We're not going to go to those 2. But, you know, if you guys can kind of mediate it out and try and see what makes the most sense. Again, remembering that most people look at the kitchens, the bathrooms, the floors, and they ask, when was the furnace done? When were the windows done? When was the roof done? So if your brother, for example, wants to, let's put a whole bunch of extra insulation on the walls and blah, blah, nobody's going to see that and you're not going to get the money out for it, okay? So I wouldn't suggest doing something like that, but thank you for asking. Okay, so the next was a 10-year-old little boy, and he lived in a shelter with his parents. He was from Nigeria, and they came over because basically there was some violence in the community that they were living in. And just less than a year ago, he, learned obviously to play chess from the shelter. And so he went in a competition and he got last place. And just the other day, he won in the whole country. So now he just got number 1 in less than a year, and he's only 10 and he's in grade 5. So I thought that was super cute. I don't know, because it's just cute. The next question comes from Stacy and Angus. Stacy and Angus said, I saw you recently posting about rollerblading and was wondering, with a team in this crazy market, how do you find downtime for you to reconnect? I am asking because I have 3 jobs and a 6-year-old, and it just seems there's never that time. Thank you, Stacy, for asking. It's like a step that at least you're aware that you don't have you time. But I literally just scheduled in. I read something once years ago that if you were retired tomorrow, what would you do? And like make a list. So you could say, I would take an art class, or I would do more yoga, or I would sleep 7 hours a night, or I would swim twice a week, or I would, I don't know, I'd do whatever, learn how to sing or take some kind of lessons, and then basically, turn the page and start to plan it out. So put it in now, because obviously we never know if we're going to get to retirement. We don't know if we're going to have the health to get to retirement. We don't know what have you, but just start to put it in now, as opposed to suddenly 10 years has passed and you haven't done it. But just start to schedule in time for you, and don't let people, let's just say you have a scheduled bath Wednesday at 8, and then somebody's like, hey, blah, blah, blah. Don't say, oh yeah, I'm just having a bath, I'll just move it to another day. Just say, sorry, I already have an appointment, I already have a prior engagement, I already whatever. You don't have to tell them what it is. And just keep your time allotted to yourself. It's just a lot easier. And I hope that you find time for yourself to just, have a better peace of mind, because it'll help when chaos happens for you in the daytime. But thank you for reaching out and asking. So the next thing, obviously everybody's been affected differently by COVID, and a lot of people, like that 87% or 72%, I forget what it was, that feel like they're better people. A lot of people, realize, oh, I don't spend enough time with my parents, or I don't this, or I don't that. There was a lady who was 60, and it wasn't necessarily from COVID, but she had a stroke, and then she started to have to learn how to do things with her left hand. So, put her earrings on, or brush her hair, brush her teeth, or what have you. And she picked up her daughter's, or granddaughter's, I should say, paint supplies, and she started to paint, and she actually really liked it. And her daughter said, normally before COVID, before the stroke, she was always work, 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 work. And now she literally just paints every day and has found like her true passion and so forth. So instead of being stressed, she's painting. So I like whether it's COVID that makes people realize things. Obviously, there's been negatives in COVID, of course, and people's health and so forth. But there's been a lot of positives out of it as well. So if you can find what truly lights you up and passion, then I always am game for that. So I like that lady found her passion in painting, and with her left hand of all things. And to be honest, that is all from me. So I hope you guys stay safe, smile, encourage each other, see loved ones, whether like this or in person, if you are allowed. And have a great day. Take care. Bye.